Again, this is Dr. Tony at Chiropractic in Upland. I also run the Crooked Spine Show podcast. I'm here with Jay and Micah, here with Kids Sports News Network. They've had this for a long time. I want to hear their story, how they help families, coaches, and athletes become the next level for them and how they market them. I'm in the healthcare. This is what I do, is healthcare. I understand that with health comes being active, playing sport maybe too. How does KSNN help those athletes market themselves well? So we'll get started with you guys. When did KSNN, when was created? How did it start?
About 20 years ago.
Okay.
It got started from our son playing soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a journalist by trade.
Yes.
So I wanted to know who the other kids were that he was playing with and what was their story. What was their family story? You know what I mean?
Yes.
How did they get involved in this travel ball circuit? Because I had only heard from when we were kids, I had only heard about, recreational sports and playing at the local YMCA or local baseball or basketball courts. But this whole new phenomena of travel and club sports came into being. And there's some really compelling stories about the kind of families and kids that are out there playing that I really got interested in. And there it was. We did some research. I had some attorneys do some research to see whether or not there was anything like that out there. And Kids Sports News Network was born.
And did you focus on just the one sport, or were you focused on several sports at that time with your son?
Oh no! Well, initially, it was just the one sport.
Okay.
But once we found out that there was nothing that could really dive into and explore the variations of stories and families and whatever that was out there, we get involved in all sports, and not just all sports too. I mean, you'd be surprised. I had an argument with my staff about girls cheerleading.
Was this 20 years ago or something?
20 years ago.
Okay.
20 years ago.
Okay.
20 years ago that girls cheerleading was not a sport.
Got it.
And
Stir the pot.
And I found out that a sport is really about being active, about competing at varying levels, dealing with a myriad of things, even what do you call it? Not just cheerleading, but water polo, and a myriad of other things that,
It wasn't just baseball, basketball, or football.
Right.
There's other things out there that families and kids grow into and grow up in.
Exactly.
And it's about the spirit of the competition. That experience
Yes.
kind of opened our doors to start exploring, well, wait a minute, in the world of youth competition, what is it that exists where, kids and families are competing? And through that discovery, we ended up going to Florida to cover junior ROTC, event, because junior ROTC students, they compete and practice just like football players do.
Yes.
Paintball.
Even band.
Yes,
Yeah.
and now that's on the table.
Like you said, in general, what do kids gravitate to? What's their routine daily life? How are they staying active to physically help them grow?
Exactly.
As a better person, as a mature person.
Exactly.
And that all helps.
Exactly. Physically and emotionally and all the way around. So
Was there a lot of kickback when you started to expand out from the 3-4 major sports 20 years ago?
No.
Or was it more of, okay, how do we incorporate everything?
no, we've been very well received by all communities. A lot of the families that we get involved with are surprised that anyone cares. That people care that much to find out, about their kid's story, about their school or their, if we're not dealing with schools, we're dealing with just a travel ball arena. They're very excited about that.
We're going to change perception of, if parents, as a parent myself, my kid may get dragged into this travel team, this club team for one, but why? And why is that purpose?
Right.
You're taking the outside perspective of how does this story actually work versus kid joins a team, plays a team, joins another team, grows up and does his own thing.
Exactly.
How does that develop into an actual program that the kid, the family, and the team's affected by and develops as they mature?
Right. And you'd be surprised at how many controversial issues that are out there that deal with youth sports. For example, how is it good for an athlete to play just one sport year round? And that's been something that's been highly discussed within the medical community, that it's not a good thing.
Great.
So.
But are parents and kids pressured to play on that travel team, for example, that may have their normal schedule, but also winter ball, then summer ball, then fall ball? So that if they don't stay on that team, what happens? Someone else takes their spot.
Exactly.
So that pure pressure sometimes can affect going against the medical dogma of, hey, let's get this kid to be a rounded person, so their overall body develops both physically and mentally in their prime years of, say, 8 to 20 years old.
Exactly. We've got a campaign that we've been brought on to do for one of our high-profile fast pitch coaches in the world of club or travel fast pitch, and she promotes and is being retained by organizations to teach this, that in the world of travel ball, especially with female athletes, we got to promote a balance versus it being all about the sport if we want to get the best outcome. Because, the reality is in the world of female sports, even on the collegiate level, the opportunities going to the pro route is not as plentiful as it is for males. So we've got to cultivate a culture of female athletes that are prepared for life, not just to pursue the sport to infinity.
It's not just the win. We want to make that person a good person,
Exactly.
a good mentor for maybe the future athletes of that field too.
Exactly.
Great. And also too, how do you choose, now that you're as busy as you are, 2019, 20 years later, how do you choose which coaches, which families, which athletes to actually interview? What's the process?
It's organic. It can begin with something as simple as, for example, us covering recently the number one or one of the highest rated linebackers in Southern California, or in the United States actually, and then from doing his story, we find out more about the team. We find out more about the coach. We find out more about someone that he played against. You know what I mean? And that would lead us down another route. So it really has to deal with us, keeping our ears to the ground and finding out what are good stories that are out there. And sometimes people will call into us and let us know. That there are stories out there. Well, what about this kid? Or it could be your kid, that's got a great story. So it's a myriad of different approaches that we deal with that enables us to be able to, get a good story and find out more about the kids and the families that are out there.
You keep your eyes and ears open all the time for what's out there. And
Exactly.
You're able to listen to the people too. Hey, I have this going on. Would this be a good story for you?
Sometimes too, just like in the world of journalism, we may get a lead on a story. We have a young athlete, out of the Pasadena area that we started covering him when he was 11, and now he's a junior in high school.
Okay.
When we started covering him at 11, and he's in the sport of football, his career going from 11 to high school kind of took a dip because he had to work his way up the food chain. So whereas he was the big fish in a small pond coming into high school, we had to back away. Now in his junior year, he's coming into his maturity as an athlete. So those kind of experiences will bring us back to the story because the audience may have gotten introduced to him, at 11. Now we have an opportunity to let them know this is where it all lands,
And does that help you build up a big story and give him credibility where, hey, he was here at 11, he kind of took a little bit, he was in the shadows because he had to work his way up, now he's where he is. Does that add to his overall credibility as an athlete? Huge, right?
Good question.
Huge. I would think so. At that point, you're showing a longevity, not just his last 2 years of his life.
Exactly. It lets the audience become invested because they feel like they've watched this young man grow up.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're the tool to make that happen.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And when you go to interview people, and I say coaches and athletes, what questions do you want them to be? What questions do you want answered to make the story about the athlete or how it works?
Who are you? Tell us who are you? What's on your bucket list? What are the things that you want to do before you settle down and have children or whatever? What's your life like when you're not on the field? What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of art are you interested in? And those kinds of things to help us understand more about the person. You know what I mean?
So it's a person behind the helmet, behind the mask.
Well, yeah, you don't really,
outside the uniform.
You don't really know the person that's under the helmet or behind in the uniform. You don't. You spend a lot of time. A lot of companies spend a lot of time talking about the statistics. And we are less concerned about the statistics than we are concerned about the people and the humanity, and that's where we are.
And doing that, do you also focus on not just the athlete, but also the person, the players around the athlete, their friends, their family?
Sure, absolutely. We've done entire teams where we individually speak to each athlete that's on the team and find out what it is that chemistry that brings you all together, that makes you so successful. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's the camaraderie that they share off the field, after games, even in losses. We were covering a girls soccer team that had been championed for years. Had been winning the
Just
championship. Yeah, exactly. And happened to lose. And it was devastating for them.
Okay.
But they were able to rebound because of the camaraderie, because of the friendship that they share.
Culture.
Yeah, the culture.
They're to come back.
A lot of that comes from the coaches too. You can't be overstated the importance and the value of having a good coach. Having a coach who's got a sound understanding about the fact that these athletes are people. You know what I mean? And it's important to understand how to get the best and the most out of them from understanding their humanity.
And I think one of the things we've come to learn after 20 years we've been doing this is it's like being a parent. You can have 6 children, but each one of those children have a different identity. They have a different soul. They have a different makeup, emotionally. When we deal with these athletes, whether it be teams, whether it be individuals, we come to recognize we can deal with 200 soccer athletes, but not one of them is the same. 200 soccer teams, each one is different. So we've learned to master the approach of going through and bringing out that unique identity of what makes them uniquely them.
Exactly.
And I saw one of your videos you had recently about the Choppers, the softball team. Talk about how their chemistry worked as part of this overall program. When you interviewed them, what was it exactly what you wanted, or what you said more organic? It just showed up the way it showed up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That story, it probably represents the model when I say we started way back. We actually, with the Choppers, we met Coach Kim Enzi several years ago when she was with a totally different program.
Still softball though, correct?
Still softball, but a different organization. But through we were covering some of the athletes that were up under her umbrella. And what we learned about Coach Kim was, as we got more into her athletes, as Jay was saying, a lot of what those young ladies had adopted in terms of principles of sports athletes and individuals would trace back to what they had learned from Coach Kim. So that led us to ask the question, well, who is Coach Kim?
Got it.
And once we started paying more attention and spending more time with Coach Kim, learning about her principles as an athlete and a human being, well, where did that come from? That led us back to her family. So the foundation is started with what we call the first pebble that was laid by her dad. So as Coach Kim's journey through fast pitch evolved, and as she progressed through the fast pitch culture, led that organization onto Choppers, she brought us with her so that we could help her brand grow and help the fast pitch market understand and appreciate and become educated about what she's teaching these female athletes. So now what we're learning is the progression is consistent. Those values about being balanced as an individual. And when I was mentioning the coach that promotes a balance in life, that's who I was referring to. She's very passionate about making sure that her athletes understand, okay, fast pitch is important and it's going to be a tool to college, but family is important, your spiritual, whatever your spiritual journey is, that's important. Recreation is important. It's important that you are healthy, as we said, as a total human being.
Or the fact that you think very highly of yourself.
Confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that is very rewarding when you see coaches that are able to affect their athletes like that.
Exactly. And the thing that we enjoy about Coach Kim and other coaches like her is she has a philosophy which resonates with what our stand is. Our belief is that any athlete, no matter how competitive they are, every athlete has a story. There is a reason, and the beauty about it is at that age, although a lot of them aspire to go on to college and hopefully pro, a lot of times the motivation is coming from here. It's coming from the heart. Yeah. The byproduct is the benefits that they get from it, but it's very genuine and very pure. And we find that Coach Kim and a lot of these coaches, when they are coaching their athletes, that's their inspiration. They realize they've got the cusp of a human being's life right in the palm of their hand. And those seeds that they lay are going to affect what kind of adults they become. Mm-hmm. We're just honored to have a front seat and see where they land.
We call it the popcorn.
Like popcorn.
Yeah. Why popcorn?
Yeah.
Because it's like watching a movie. You get a big tub of popcorn and just watch the movie. And for us, it's like watching a movie. It's like being able to watch a youth athlete grow and their families grow and move on, and they may not become a pro, but they may become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or what have you, or just a good all-around good person.
That's all they hope for.
Exactly.
Did they plant that seed that allowed them to have the motivation, that confidence to go for their goals?
Exactly.
On or off the field.
And we get the front seat view of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And some people would say too, because you mentioned a part of your mission is, how do you test the reliability of stories and families and things like that? How does reliability come to portion when you talk about production or watching someone grow or watching a team grow?
Well, it's important for us to be able to vet our story, to make sure that we're not putting out false information or anything of that nature, and that takes a bit of investigation. Us finding out more from people around that particular athlete, not just from that athlete.
Their parents going to say, my kid's the best in this sport ever in the world for centuries.
Of course.
And that's a valid concern, because in this world of social media now, you have, as it relates to youth athletes, so much desire to be the top athlete now, male and female. When we get leads, we've recently found that our vetting team has to be very mindful to do our due diligence. Like when we look at their social media platforms,
Good.
okay, their numbers being what they are, we have discovered after doing research, okay, those numbers are not all genuine, they're not all organic. You follow me?
Yes.
So we just as Jay was saying, we've got to do our due diligence. We have a small team that, will fact gather, to make sure before we bring that story to life, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Which reflection of not only you, but also a reflection of the kid or the team or the coach.
Mm-hmm.
So if that gets out, hey, this isn't really true, everyone gets burned.
Exactly.
So that one parent may have said this team, this kid's great, also you do the story, it's not, then everyone gets blown up.
Exactly.
That's not fun at all.
Exactly. No. One of the things that makes it a little easier for us, which is a blessing, is being headquartered here in Southern California. We're in a hotbed of sports talent, all the way around. So we I guess benefit from being out there so long, the number of years. We've got relationships in respective industries, water polo, baseball, softball, with industry professionals, to where when we get a lead, and it may be a market we dealt with 4 or 5 years ago, we can get on the phone, to a basketball industry. Okay, what do you know about this organization? We've got reliable resources, or this coach, exactly. So a lot of that is through relationship building, establishing the reputation of who we are, such that we can make a phone call to a respected industry professional. Give us, the scoop of what do you know about this? And a lot of times our decision to move forward or not will be based on that person who we trust. That gives us, either the thumbs up or, if you proceed with caution.
Exactly.
And give us some
all stories are not good stories, but,
Yeah.
we have to be judicial.
And that's very, very important too, because one thing I do want to mention, you were asking, did we kind of backlash or what kind of resistance we may have had in the beginning?
Yes.
As Jay said, when we came out the gate, the families couldn't get enough of us.
Yeah.
But I would say if any resistance or concern was there, because no one had ever seen anything like KSNN, the question would be from the family's perspective, well, am I going to have to pay for this?
Mm-hmm.
And in the world of youth sports, that's a big concern, because most youth sports organizations are trying to raise money just to,
facilitate for the travel team, for travel themselves wherever you have to go, so they're paying $1,000 a year no matter what.
Exactly, and then I got to pay for this media as well. Yeah. But once we explain to them, our model is no different than ESPN or Fox's. We actually have sponsors and advertisers that cover this. Once we got past that educational or learning curve, then it's okay, now we got it. So when we take on stories, we have to be mindful that if we've got a brand associated, our reputation is on the line, but that brand that is, behind us is on the line too. So, it's a pretty serious consideration.
In once you have the story, once you have, it's a reliable story, we have enough film, we have enough testimonials and people we've interviewed around the story, how does the post-production work? To what kind of perception do you want in post-production once you have all the film you need?
Well, we have regular production meetings where we sit down and we talk about the varying stories that are coming up that we're going to do, and we create a storyboard and put together, how we want it to flow. Actually, as a result of Micah and her a strong influence of music, we almost always start with what kind of tempo do we want it to have? What tempo? Yeah, exactly. Is this a fast piece? Is this something that's very sentimental? What kind of aura do we want it to have? And we'll start there and lay a track, and then start putting the pieces together based upon the storyboard. That like I said, once we have the music, then we set the storyboard, and then
That's a lot of work, right?
yes, a great deal of work. Yeah.
For every hour of just for every hour of film you have, what's it take to edit that film down to a final production?
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You know, depending upon if you have an hour, maybe 5 hours of editing that goes into it, and that's just the initial edit. That's just the
Just to show, okay, do we want to use this?
yeah, exactly. And a number of people will take a look at it. I'm the last one that looks at
Got
it.
it. Yeah. Head honcho.
I'm the guy because I'm going to say no to everything. So
Good.
well, make your case.
Yeah.
In other words,
Can it be improved?
could it be improved? Is this something that Joe or Jane public is going to gravitate to if they have absolutely no interest in softball?
You look from the outside perspective, is the audience, is the viewer going to actually, hey, this is something I've heard before, what's going on?
Exactly.
Grab their attention. Not just the mom, dad, or the coach, or teammates.
Exactly.
Or I think one of the things Jay is adamant about holding us to the fire with, and I say us because I pretty much lead the marketing side, and our son leads the production side, but the person that's looking at this, are they going to be able to answer the question, why do I care?
Got it.
That's first and foremost. And we've learned, again, that the art of making sure that they have an answer to that is if they feel an emotion, an emotional connection in some way, then they've got a reason to care. So like when he talks about, editing an hour's worth of footage, a lot of times young talent, when I say young talent, meaning young production talent,
Yes.
coming out of school, they think I've got a degree, I know how to operate
my
software, I've got a camera, I'm ready to go.
I learned everything from books. I'm awesome.
Exactly, and they get in the real world and they realize I got
I'm
nothing.
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Right.
I've made zero money. I know a lot of money. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to understand when you are producing content has to be felt. So that means an hour's worth of footage, you have to know the importance of timing. You have to know the importance of pacing. You have to know the importance of, even though you may take that hour and edit it down to 3 good minutes, that 3 good minutes can take another 2.5 hours to get it right to where that audience viewer has the answer to this question, why do I care? And so typically students, when they get out and they get into our world, and it's like, okay, my classroom instruction doesn't quite connect all the dots for what the real world demands.
They'll change their tune real fast.
The classroom doesn't make any money. They're just there to give you a degree.
Exactly.
And you said your son does a lot of the post production too. Mm-hmm. What's his part in the overall company?
He is the production manager.
Okay.
So he is the one that leads. He's on the front line of leading the editors and voice talent and so forth, and putting the pieces together. He is an anomaly.
And how long has he been with the company or doing that type of?
Well, again,
Did he go to
remember, it
school for
started.
film, or was he into that before?
No.
Okay.
He learned most of it sitting on
your knee.
Experience.
Sitting on
Front
my
line,
lap,
yeah.
exactly. I remember when he was all of 8 years old, and I had him, jump up on my knee and had him to edit something out of Photoshop.
Back in Photoshop.
Back in Photoshop, yeah. And so he learned from that, and then he learned, Final Cut.
Got it.
Which is editing,
Yep.
initial editing software that he cut his teeth on. So he, again, he learned it organically. He learned from, actually hands-on and doing that.
Did you learn the patience that it takes to produce?
Edit. Well, the thing about it is that, he learned early on that you have to have that patience. You have to be willing to spend all night, getting that just right cut, you know what I mean? While understanding at the same time that everything is not going to be perfect.
No.
It's not going to, everything, I remember hearing George Lucas saying that he wanted to change different things from Star Wars. Now, Star Wars, it's Star Wars and that whole thing.
It's considered perfect.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't like certain things about it. So we're the same way. We'll look at something and, everybody will be saying, oh, wow, this is the greatest thing besides a sliced bread.
You like breakfast at the same time. Like, watch breakfast cut, make it a little better.
Exactly.
Wow. So that patience was a lot of what you guys do. It's not just, hey, here's the story, here's the hour of film, but what did it take to get there?
Exactly.
And what did we keep, what did we not keep?
Exactly.
And what do you still archive for down the line? That kid, if he goes to this sport or the Olympics, you can use for that kid. That point, 30 years later, this is where he first started.
Yeah.
And give him the full story.
I remember there was a time when the production crew came in and told me that there was this great story about this kid that was here from Illinois that we needed to go and cover. He was playing at UCLA during a tournament. Turns out it was LeBron James.
Got it.
So by the time he put his movie together,
Before he was King James.
exactly,
Exactly.
we had footage that he could use. You know what I mean? For his,
Just having that available in the bank. So if and when you need that, why not?
exactly.
But that's what we mean about the popcorn stage, because we don't know where these kids are going to land. We have no idea.
And we hear from them a lot years later. You know what I mean?
Or we see them on television.
Yeah.
Or, wait
a
a
second.
We know you, and it's exciting.
It's a true story. We actually had our one of our first. Actually, she was our first anchor.
Okay.
Anchor for our show. This was about 20 years ago. And she was a fantastic person. And we got along so well, and she was very professional and so forth. Turns out that she wound up being Patty Jenkins. Now, I don't know if you know who Patty Jenkins is. Well, Patty Jenkins is the producer, director for Wonder Woman. So it's like, it's just amazing, what transpires after
This
years.
is 20 years later.
20 years later.
Wow.
20 years later.
You just don't
Yeah,
know.
she was a
You
student at
never know.
AFI, and we were working with them, doing internships, and a lot of the students would get work study with us, and they were like, we got this phenomenal student, she'd be great, and she'd be wonderful.
Yeah, we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See if she makes the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But putting enough just seeds out there, you're going to get 1 or 2 out of 100.
Yeah.
But if you just put 10 out there, you may get 0.
Exactly.
So doing the work and doing the work and doing the work is the key.
Yeah.
What have you seen examples that we would know of in 2019 that have made it based on the material you guys give them, the marketing you've worked with?
In terms of athletes that have made it?
Athletes or coaches or teams?
Well, again, like for example, Justin Flo is a recent story that we've covered, who is getting ready to go into college. He's a senior now, and he was just awarded the Dick Butkus linebacker award. And we had a chance to meet with Dick Butkus the other day. There are athletes that are playing. For example, we interviewed a 11-year-old girl, I guess maybe 10 years ago, and she wound up being on a pro women's football team.
Actually, she was just drafted a couple of months in September.
Exactly.
One of the nation's first pro women's football leagues.
Yeah.
And it's something, when I think about the question, I don't know if I would answer it that we were responsible for them getting there. I think that seed was already laid. We're just responsible for recognizing that it had been watered. If you follow me.
Got it.
And I think the value of what we bring comes more when they become adults, because we memorialize that period. You know, you're only like this young lady. When she was 11 years old, she was a phenom. She played tackle football.
Wow.
And it was a beautiful story because her dad is a well-known, or he has since retired, but was a well-known football coach. Yeah, you know, in the youth market. Actually, she came from a legacy, her grandfather and her father.
Wow.
And it was interesting because what we learned was, after getting to know them, her dad did his job very well. Because of his football culture mindset, he taught his daughter, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do whatever you have set your mind to. So when she decided she wanted to play tackle football, she used that against him when he tried to steer her somewhere else.
I didn't really say that. It was somebody else.
Exactly. No, you taught me this. But, you know, he had the wisdom to, okay, all right, I got to own it and let her blossom. And now, you know, she is getting ready to begin her stint as one of the first female professional football.
She was a well-known track star at Oregon.
Exactly. Very successful career.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we think about it, when we met her, the seed was already there. You know, we just recognized it had been watered. And now, you know, that she is this young woman now, well beyond 11 years of age, the story that we were able to memorialize at such time, she gets married, she brings children into the world, and she wants to take them back in time. We've got that vehicle.
Exactly.
So
That's awesome. You guys are historians of people's, not only their field life, but also their personal lives too.
Exactly. And that goes back to what Jay was saying. You know, the motive is, who are you as a human being? You know, because he said you're going to probably do some great things.
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah, we had the honor to cover the story of another, we had been away from football for a long time, and now I'm realizing we've gotten back into it.
Organically.
Exactly, organically. It was laid at our door, so we just opened or turned the key. But a young man, Tanner McGee, you know, who came out of Corona Centennial. And when we first heard about Tanner's story, you know, everybody was on the hunt for a piece of Tanner as a quarterback. He's a 4-star quarterback, gotten an offer to Stanford. But, you know, when we found out that he was graduating in 2018, but he would not be starting Stanford in 2020, well, what's that about?
Yeah.
And come to find out, he basically told Stanford, okay, I'll be there, but I've made a commitment to do a Mormon mission. So his spirituality and his spiritual conviction, not that he is unique in that way, but no one has taken the time to find out from a student that is that convicted spiritually, why would you have enough confidence to tell Stanford, wait for me 2 years? You follow me? So Stanford waits for nobody.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
And once we got to meet him and witness his story, it was like, wow, we got it. You know, this young man, as great as he is, I don't know if football will be his career. Going to Stanford, obviously he's got many career choices. But to have had a front seat at a time in his life that he was convicted enough to make that choice, like his parents asked me after we released the story, you know, how can we ever repay you guys? Because you guys were the first ones that really wanted to talk to Tanner.
Sure.
On the spiritual
Besides
basis.
the
Football.
Yeah, as a human being.
Right. And our response was, we want the front seat at the wedding, okay? That's how you repay us. When the firstborn gets here, we want to be there. You know, I mean, how can you put a price on something like that?
Yeah.
You
But
know?
you're following the kid, not just the sport, not just the athlete. Most people would I'm not going to call that kid back. I'm not involved anymore. I'm going to go to this other store because it's no longer what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making that, like you said, you're moralizing that kid's life, family, and future relatives and kids so they understand where we came from, what his purpose was.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
By doing that, you're seeing it, not just hearing it.
Exactly.
That hearing is sometimes will change the perception of the real story.
Mm-hmm.
You're there really just showing what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about the humanity.
Exactly. And we see ourselves as, again, when the families are singing our praises, we turn it around. Oh, wait a minute. Again, going back to Justin. Justin, is destined to do great things in the sport of football. But we had the opportunity to get to see Justin with his helmet off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a side to Justin beyond him being the nation's #1 linebacker. Our job is to share that part of him with the world. What makes him unique to the linebacker that's going to Alabama or the linebacker that's at Clemson? Mm-hmm. What makes Justin different from that? Mm-hmm. We get the honor to convey that.
Everybody is somebody's baby, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that person, if he, for example, doesn't want to play football when he goes out of college, then what's his life going to be?
Yeah.
And how did his life at Upland or just in general get him there?
Mm-hmm.
So he even sees that too.
Yeah, we covered a kid in football years ago. I don't remember how many years ago. Stefan, who was a 5-star athlete, running back, playing for Dorsey High School, and we started covering him when he was a sophomore, I think it was.
So probably about 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah, and destined to be, in the NFL and the whole 9 yards. And I remember we did an interview with him and his parents just before he announced where he was going to be going. And he ultimately decided that he was going to USC and went to USC. Okay. Last year, a senior, last year at USC, broke his neck. Literally broke his neck. And his mother during the interview had told him, you better make sure you take care of you as a person, because you never know. And this was like 4 years, you talk about premonition, 4 years before it actually happened, and somebody was spotting him on a bench press, and turned it back, and yeah. But now he's a dad. He's got 3 kids. As a matter of fact, he's got a newborn coming up that they invited us to a baby shower. And this was 12 years ago.
Yeah, Stefan watched our son grow up, actually.
Exactly.
So now, the circle of life.
Well, and the value you provide for people, they won't know this until they mature enough to realize how you help them.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I say it comes when they become parents, or when their next generation of life kicks in.
Yeah.
Are people seeing these stories that have, say, athletes in their own family and going, wow, I want to be like that. I want that to be my example. I want these videos, these stories to help mentor me and my children to become better people, not just better athletes. Are people seeing that yet or not?
Well, I would say the answer to that is yes. The reason why I chuckle, because it's not just when they get to be adults and they have children, but we've had athletes. Remember the young man from Indiana that called us? Had his mom look up our number. A 12-year-old athlete. This was through seeing our content on television.
Yes.
He was in Indiana and he saw an athlete's story, and he had bugged his mom to high heaven. How do I get in touch with KSNN? So finally they tracked down the number and mom gave us a call. And he was so inspired by one of the stories that he saw that he wanted to learn, well, what do I have to do to be like that?
Good.
Not to be covered, but to be like that athlete.
Exactly.
So I laugh because it starts very young.
It's coming full circle.
Exactly.
You're helping people not reinvent the wheel, how to raise my athletic kid, how to be an athlete, how to be a good person, how to get through all of that sometimes struggle of being pulled here from this club team to this travel team.
Yeah,
You're setting that golden road for them to see that.
exactly. It's a good way of putting it. It's the golden road.
I just make stuff in my head all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm saying. and with your stories, how do you distribute everything now? Is it more through social media? Is it more on TV? What do you guys focus on to get people to see it, like the kid in Indiana?
Right now, it's more through social media.
Okay.
But we're about to start a new program on television, which should include Fox Sports, but it will be a national platform. So
That's great.
And that actually was our original home. We were, well, no, I shouldn't say our original home. We started off actually on VHS. But a lot of the audience may not know what that is.
Yeah, you have to be at least, I think, 23, 24.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
These millennials have no idea.
No clue.
But
What's
we
that?
grew to the point of being picked up by television, and right at the time that our expansion took off on television was concurrent when the internet took off.
Got it.
And unbeknownst to us at that time, the internet became a monster and a beast, and one of our consultants had warned us, okay, you guys are on TV, but that's not the promised land.
Yeah.
And took us a little while to get what he was saying, but once we realized it, because the younger generation is really more dedicated to the digital platform for getting their content. So we backed away from television production because, television being the beast that it is, deadlines, production deadlines, they don't negotiate. So we couldn't serve two masters. So we just had to back away and regroup to reshape our business model to allow us to develop a rollout plan digitally. And fortunately, the distribution company that we worked with regarding television, we have a very good relationship. So they're like, just let us know when you're ready because we've got the market for you. So,
That's great.
Yeah. So, we're at the point now of, evaluating, well, the rollout launch for social media is not going to be very difficult. We've spent about 2 years kind of beta testing the content to see how the audience would respond, and it's been pretty favorable, and we had to learn how to work the marketing aspect of it. Now that we've got that, I think the next thing is mobile, developing our own app so that...
Well, you have the content, and once you have the content, then you can put that content in any platform you want to put on.
Exactly.
That's all comes down.
Exactly.
You have it, like I said, your son takes care of all the production stuff.
The millennials.
It's in some Google Drive somewhere.
Exactly.
On some cloud somewhere.
Some cloud.
You pulled out from the cloud.
Exactly.
Right with my stuff.
You know their language. I have to tell the millennials that they'll send me a Google Doc. Don't send me a Google Doc. Email me a Word doc, okay?
Something I can work with.
Yeah. You guys can communicate with that. Just send me a Word doc.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. We're going to communicate on their level. Maybe their parent level may want something like not VHS tape, maybe DVD, but the kid wants to see it on YouTube.
Exactly.
Or on Instagram or TikTok or somewhere else.
Exactly.
So you have to be able to adapt to their way of communicating,
Right.
Exactly.
whatever it might be.
And
Yeah,
that
keep up with the time.
That's it. No more yellow pages.
No.
Apologize. Sorry, yellow pages.
But we kind of charge that part to our son, because that's his world. He grew up in it, so he and the production team, the millennial generation, let them handle that part because that's their expertise.
Yeah, you guys are doing well. Anything else I didn't ask that usually you like to bring up? My short list.
I will just re-emphasize
Yes.
that so much of this is about the humanity, our humanity. I think that a lot of times the ESPNs or the big guys lose sight of a lot of the story behind the statistics. And it's important for us to keep that as a reminder for them that these athletes are people, and for us it begins here. Your story begins with KSNN because we're the beginning, we're on the front line. So But obviously it begins here. So.
And your timeline is your timeline.
Yeah.
It's not ESPN's 23 minutes headline reading. That's it.
Yeah.
You can have a full story, and they can look at it whenever they want to look at it, especially whenever platform they're on. There's not a push there. There's a patience you can be with that story over a period of years, even decades, like you had mentioned.
And a follow up, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
we can find you guys everywhere. I looked up most of your stuff, your website, ksnn.net, and then YouTube, Facebook, Instagram is KSN channel, just KSNN channel, one word. And you guys are set. You guys are growing, and I appreciate letting me interview.
Before we wrap up, I do have one thing I would like to say. As we shared with you, coming from the world of television and building our model digitally, we've had to, re-pioneer the landscape in terms of building on local sponsorships, especially when we're looking for local support. And I'd like to just say a special thank you to the city of Upland, to our Upland Chamber of Commerce, to Supervisor Kurt Hagman, and to Supervisor Janice Rutherford. They have been tremendously supportive, and I cannot forget the city of Fontana. They have all been immensely supportive, because we've got to now educate our local business community to understand and be introduced to what we do, because that's who pays for us to get out and cover our athletes. And our business community is kind of now turning that corner and becoming, okay, this is something we need to stand behind.
It's coming full circle.
Yeah, it's coming full circle. So I'd love to just say thank you to them, because they've been the bridge to help us introduce this to the communities.
That's great. So, it seems like once they see it, the program, okay, let's support this, they're going to benefit too by having their cities, their programs be more involved with local kids, with local families.
Exactly.
With enjoying that benefit versus going to an expensive club team, travel team, whatever it might be. You can see the benefit of staying within the city. Great.
Exactly.
Great. Anything else, guys?
No, that's it.
Jay, nice talking to you. Phenomenal story, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for the Crooked Spine Show. We'll see you guys next time.
Okay. Thank
All right.
you. Bye-bye.
That's it.